What if your next vacation could do more than just give you memories? It could also uplift local communities and protect the planet. For Gabriella Yan, that question could not be ignored, and it ultimately bugged her so much that it led her to start a lifestyle-forward travel platform that is revisiting what people and planet-friendly tourism looks like. Hello and welcome to Season 10 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Gun. My mission is to uncover the stories and strategies of Asian women entrepreneurs to inspire and guide you on your own entrepreneur journey. This episode is brought to you by Redbox Studio. Today we're sitting down with a woman who has turned her career in luxury hospitality into a mission for conscious travel. Originally from Singapore but now based in Bali, Indonesia, Gabriella, or Gabby, is building a business rooted in compassion, community, and care, values she inherited from her grandmother, who taught her to be kind to everyone. This episode is filled with stories about Gabby's travel business, but is also filled with travel hacks and tips for travelers who would like to travel more consciously and ensure that their travel isn't creating more harm to the planet and its people. Hello, Gabby. Welcome to Womenpreneur Asia.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So Gabby, today we are going to talk about something that probably never crossed my mind, but because you are in the business, I started reading a lot more about it. So I want to talk about everything that you do, but before we get started on that, can you give us a little backstory on how you ended up starting your business? And of course, what's the name of your business?
Okay, sure. So the name of my business, so I'm the founder of TRAppe. So that's spelled as TRAPPE. That actually stands for, so TRE actually stands for travel, the short form of travel. And PPE actually stands for people, planet, economy, which is the three pillars of sustainability. So what I'm doing is actually a lifestyle forward travel platform that connects travelers to experiences that are kind to the planet and good to its people. So it's actually fall under the realm of sustainable travel, which we can talk about a little bit more. And just a little bit about me. So my background is actually in hospitality, luxury hospitality marketing across Asia. So I'm originally from Singapore, but I've lived and worked in Australia, China, Vietnam, and for the last 5 years, I've been in Indonesia. So I think one of the main catalysts as to why I started TRAppe was that, working in hospitality, you're sort of like on the inside, knowing more about hospitality from the back end rather than from the front end. And basically, I saw a lot of issues while working in hospitality. But I would say one of the things that really, really bothered me was the pay for the local employees. I'm not going to name names, but there are some hotels whereby they sell rooms for about 300 USD a night, and the local staff was only getting paid 150 USD a month. And that really sort of shocked me. I didn't think that was the case in anywhere in the world right now. So that was probably one of the biggest catalysts as to what made me think twice about this industry. For the last 5 years living in Bali, and we all know, Bali is one of the top destinations in the world, but it's also experiencing a lot of mass tourism. And to really see sort of like the degeneration of the island, I just thought, I kind of have all this insider information and I know the problem and I saw the gap, and I just didn't want to sit around and not do anything about it. So I decided to start building TRAppe.
That sounds like a very short version. I'm sure there were many things that went through your mind before you decided to start TRAppe.
Yes.
Were there at any point in time before you started TRAppe, were there any doubts or anything that went through your mind and said like, wow, I'm going to do something which is quite challenging, I would say?
Yes, it is. I think definitely it is very challenging because I think sustainability as a whole is a very complex issue, right? There's so many different factors, and the fact that there is three pillars. So when you're tackling sustainability, you have to tackle all three pillars, which is like the people, the planet, and the economy. So it is a very complex issue. But I would say that, I am somebody who really enjoys problem solving. Running a business and tackling such a complex issue for me is problem solving in that sense. I also think, as the world grows, there is a lot of misalignments and there's a lot of misunderstandings between different cultures. And I see that a lot, especially because I've lived in quite a number of different countries. And I think one of the reasons that actually brings about all of this misunderstanding is the fact that, people don't really understand each other's culture. And I think travel is one of those things that really help you to open your eyes and open your mind to be more sympathetic and compassionate toward other culture and people from other countries. Through my lived experience, having lived and worked in so many places, I do believe that travel can really be a force of good and making the world a more harmonious place. The way that we've been doing travel has been very extractive. It's all about, somebody going to a destination and basically extracting whatever they would like, whether that is through experience, whether that is through where they spend their money, and then leaving without really ever thinking about how all of their actions actually affect the local community and the local people. I would admit that I used to be like this too. I never really realized this problem, and I think a lot of people don't actually. But like I said, the biggest catalyst was the fact that I was working in hotels and I saw this huge gap between how much the hotel was getting sold and how much they were paying the local people. And I think that really got me into thinking okay, what am I really doing? And the fact that, I was in marketing. So basically I was the one that was selling all of this to consumers. And I really, really do feel very guilty once I became very conscious of the problem. And also, a big thing about luxury hospitality is providing you 5-star service, especially in a developing destination. In order to provide you 5-star service, a lot of the things don't really come naturally to that destination. So a lot of the things has to be imported. A lot of the things, travel from a very far away place. And also that kind of didn't really sit right with me. And I think just people now are just becoming more and more conscious about what's happening with the world, whether that's through climate change or whether that's through, even just a transition of towards green energy. People are definitely becoming more conscious of this problem. And I think just along with everybody else, I became more and more conscious. And the more I read and the more I learn, the more I realize, okay, there's a huge problem within this industry. And I just really wanted to be part of the change. I think, once you become very conscious of a problem, it's very, very hard to ignore it anymore. So I just couldn't sit at home and, pretending everything was okay in the world and not do anything about it, especially knowing that I have sort of the insider scoop on what's really happening on the inside.
So once you had that idea, once you stopped feeling guilty and wanted to do something because, of your past, right? Let's call it your past.
Yeah.
What were the first steps? What do you do?
So I would say the first thing is I started to travel more consciously. I started to look for more sustainable travel options, whether that is in the place that I'm going to stay, or whether that is in the place that I'm going to eat while I'm on holiday, or whether there's an experience that I would like to have. And I had to sift through millions and millions of different sites, and I had to spend hours and hours planning. And I just thought how is it that until now, there really isn't a centralized platform and a centralized information with all of this listings of businesses that are actually doing good, whether that is for the people, for the planet, or for the economy. So I was just okay, I was doing a lot of research and I was trying to find something like this, a platform. There are definitely some platforms, but I think they are very much hotel focused rather than restaurant focused or experiences focused. And I somehow just managed to put 2 and 2 together. I just came out with this idea, and I'm not a software engineer. I don't really have any tech background. And I knew if I wanted to build something in travel tech, I really either needed funding or find a co-founder who actually has the tech background in order to do the coding and build together the platform. So I actually started raising for a year and try to get whether there's investors or VCs on board. But I would say that because this is really not a topic that a lot of people talk about, it was very hard to kind of convince investors as to why this is a good idea. But I have been very, very fortunate with my investor. They specifically look for leaders and companies that's building for the next generation or problem solving for the next generation. And I do think sustainable travel is very much something that the next generation wants as well. Through a lot of surveys, for instance, Booking.com, they did a survey. They said 95% of consumers want to travel more sustainably, but only 50% actually take action. There's a huge say-do gap. And then that's when I realized, okay, like I want to do something in order to bridge the say-do gap. And one of the reasons as to why people are saying they want to travel more sustainably and not really taking action is because they don't really know what to do. They do not know where to look. They don't even know where to start. So a lot of what we're doing right now is also about educating the consumers and educating the everyday people what it means to travel more sustainably.
So did you find yourself a co-founder?
No, I did not.
Unfortunately, because I thought you said, okay, you wanted a co-founder or you wanted someone who could do some tech and coding, right? So in the end, you did not. So now you're leading it by yourself on your own with your team. And of course, you have funding since you found your investor.
Yes.
With the pitch that you gave to that person, right? Or that group of people. So how has it been? How has it been since then? I mean, how old is your startup or how long have you started?
Yeah, so the idea came about in 2023 and I actually spent a whole 2024 fundraising. I was actually part of a founders program in 2024 and at the end of 2024, I did a final investment committee meeting and then I got the funding. So I got the funding this year, March, and I really only officially in that sense started building this year, March, but this has really been quite a long time coming.
Is there a lesson in that? I mean, how could you have sped it up? If you could.
Sorry, again?
No, because you said you spent some time fundraising, right? And then you officially started this year in March. But a lot of the groundwork, a lot of the thinking work happened way before that. If there was a piece of advice you could give to yourself, rewinding back to 2023, would there have been a way to speed up the process a little bit?
To be honest, I'm somebody who believes that everything happened for a reason. So I truly believe that this was how it was supposed to happen. Because I mean, I'll be very honest, it is very hard to fundraise as a woman, especially because, you know, only less than 3% of like VC funding actually go to female. So I've definitely went through a lot of hurdles in order to get to where I am today. And I'm super, super grateful that my investors really believed in, you know, what I'm doing. But I would say if I had one piece of advice for myself, it's probably to be more confident. Because at the beginning, when I started fundraising, I had so many people tell me that it wasn't going to be possible for me. They said, you know, firstly, you're a woman. They were very honest. They said, you know, you are a woman. You are a solo female founder. You have no tech background. You didn't work at any of the big tech companies like Google or Facebook. And yeah, they just kept telling me that it was impossible. And to be very honest, I was very, very doubtful. But I just thought, hey, you know what? It's free to send out a pitch deck. Like it cost me literally no money. So I'm going to give it a try anyways. And, you know, I also gave myself a timeline. So if let's say after 6 months, if I don't get anything, then I'm probably going to move on and try to, whether that's to bootstrap or whether that's to crowdfund or whether that's to look for a co-founder even harder than I was looking before. So I think the piece of advice that I would have given myself is to be more confident. I think if I didn't doubt myself that much at the beginning, I could have like speed up this process a lot faster, because I would say for the first 3 months, I was very, very doubtful as to whether I'll be able to fundraise in the startup scene.
And what gave you that little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, knowing that, well, you were doubtful for a while, but then now you're doing it with confidence, right? But the early months, you were a little bit doubtful because of what people were telling you. But what gave you that confidence eventually?
I would actually say it's my younger brother. So my younger brother, he started his first company and started raising fund when he was 21. So by the time that I started raising fund for TRAppe, he's been already doing it for like the last 2-3 years. So I actually asked him for a lot of advice in terms of fundraising. And he said one thing to me that really stuck with me. He said, you just need one yes. And I think that was what really pushed me. I'm like, okay, there can be 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 no's, but I just need one person to buy on this idea. And I think that sort of changed my mindset. I had a sudden switch. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go out and look for this one person who's going to say yes to me. So I would say, yeah, my younger brother was the one that actually gave me the confidence to do it.
That's quite an interesting insight, because I would have thought maybe, you know, have come from your peers in the program or, you know, a VC or angel investor. But yeah, it's your family member who gave you that push. Eventually, you got funds to get started. So what was it in that particular pitch deck? Or was it the same pitch that they kept sending out? Or did you make any tweaks?
No. I mean, the first pitch deck did get me through the door. But I think what I presented at the end for the confirmation was actually a little bit different. But I think what really worked for me is that in that entire 1 year, I've really explained what the problem that I'm trying to solve. And I think I really made my investors see the issue that was sort of within travel. Because like you said, right, like nobody really thinks about this. The everyday people are not really sensitive about it and they don't really know about it. But I think I've spent the entire year showing them data, trying to convince them, and also explaining to them that, sustainable travel is so much more than just being eco. Like being eco is only just one part of it. And for me, what I'm most passionate about amongst these three pillars is actually the people. Like I said, I've lived in, Australia, China, Vietnam, and Indonesia, and the people have just been so welcoming towards me, and I'm super, super grateful and humbled that they've always welcomed me with open arms. They've shared their identity with me, they shared their culture with me, they've shared their everyday life with me. So for me, I want to do something for the people that really welcomed me with open arms. And these are really amazing people, and I think it's the people that really makes the destination very, very special, but the people are often left out of the conversation. So I think just this very kind of like human approach probably felt very, very refreshing for my investors, because nowadays, especially with startups, it's always about profit and growth and skill. A lot of the times it's at the expense of being a human or humanity. So I think I just brought a very different spin to it, to let them know I'm doing this with heart and for the people. Yes, it might not be a very traditional way a startup will operate, but I do believe, if let's say you're building for the future generation, I do believe more and more so the future generation wants things that are done with more intention rather than to be extractive.
You mentioned something interesting just now. You say you're doing something that is not the traditional way how a startup is run. Could you explain a little bit about that? How do you do it? That's different.
I think, obviously, a startup is all about growth, it's all about skill, it's all about profit, and it's also about like exponential growth, like fast growth, right? And I'm not saying that, that's not what I want. I would love to see TRAppe become very internationalized in that sense, but I want to be able to deal with purpose. I left the hospitality industry, which is quite an extractive industry, not to start another company just in a different code. I want to do it with heart, I want to do it with intention, and I want to make sure that everything is done with a purpose, and the purpose is not profit. The purpose is really to bring change and do good for the destinations.
Okay, now when you're talking about it, I'm thinking to myself, when I was a tourist or when I was a traveler, I don't know, either way, as a tourist or a traveler, what are some of the things that we don't know? That when we go to a place and we think we are doing something good, we think we are benefiting the locals.
Yeah.
But we're actually not. Are there some examples that you can bring to mind?
There is so many examples. Where do I even start?
And I say, okay, so Gabby, I'm going to Bali and I want to do so many of those cultural activities. I want to visit certain local artisans. So am I doing something wrong? Am I not following a certain eco path?
No, not at all. I mean, I would tell you that before you even land in Bali, a lot of your money has already left the community. Okay, so let's say you are booking a flight to Bali. Okay, let's not talk about airline. Okay, you book a flight, that is something that's unavoidable, and I think we need to be very realistic that travel can never be 100% sustainable. Right now in the society that we live in, nothing is 100% sustainable, and that's the reality, right? So let's put that aside about booking flights. So the first thing you're going to do is look for hotels and book hotels, right? Book accommodation. And I think just as a very natural habit and the way that we've shaped this industry, you will probably go onto a OTA site, online travel agent site, in order to compare price. And if you were to book through an online travel agent, they usually take about 15 to 30% of the commission. And that commission usually goes back to their headquarters that is usually headquartered in a Western country. So that's already 15 to 30% of the money that you spend on accommodation that has not even gone to Bali before you even step foot in Bali. On average, in a developing country like Thailand has a very bad problem with economic leakage. So for instance, in Thailand, the economic leakage can be as high as 70%, meaning that every 30 cents of every tourism dollar spent only stays local. So the entire 70% has already gone somewhere else. So then, okay, you've decided to book an accommodation. And this accommodation, you don't really know who owns this accommodation. You could think that, this is like a local, it looks like a very local kind of Balinese experience, but actually the accommodation is foreign owned. So yes, you're booking a local stay experience in Bali, but the owner is actually a foreigner. So then that money goes to the foreigner. Even though, yes, they absolutely employ the local people and give the local people a job, but the local people are not really benefiting from you booking that villa. Okay, now that you are in Bali and you've decided to go to a restaurant, and it's very trendy in Bali to eat a acai bowl. But this acai bowl flew all the way from Brazil. So basically, the restaurant is not supporting the local farmers, especially in a place like Bali where there's such abundance of produce. You're not actually helping the local farmers, and that money is basically paid to a different supplier in Brazil. So that's already another part of the money leaking out. The next thing is, okay, I want to book tours. And most likely you're also going to be booking tours through global apps. And there's also another portion of the money leaking out because, all of these booking apps actually take a commission off the price of the tour. When you're in Bali, very simple things like even buying a souvenir. So it's like, okay, you go to a local shop and you're like, okay, I'm going to get like a I Love Bali t-shirt. And it's most likely mass produced from another country. And the margin that they resell this t-shirt is actually very, very low. So, you feel like you're supporting the vendor. Yes, you absolutely are by buying from them, but the majority of the profit still does not stay within the local community. So these are just like a few different examples, but there's just so many more I can talk about when it comes to this topic.
Oh, wait, you were talking about saying, oh my God, I feel so guilty right now.
No, please don't. I mean, one of the things, the way we are selling TRAppe is that we want it to be aspirational. We don't want to guilt trip people. That is not the idea at all. I feel like, people are not taking action because people don't understand. But I do believe with education, when people do understand and once you're conscious, you're definitely going to think twice the next time before you book anything for your holiday. But please don't feel guilty. That is not at all what we're trying to sell.
Okay, so you told us about, this is the dark side of travel, right?
Yeah.
Give me the TRAppe side of travel. If I could call it that way, right?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I mean, what we're really trying to do, like I said, TRAppe is not really your typical sustainable travel brand. I feel like the word sustainability often makes people feel like they have to give up something. It feels kind of restrictive and the narrative doesn't really inspire action. We're leading with a very lifestyle forward kind of approach. Just think beautifully designed boutique stays with like stylish farm to table restaurants, curated local experiences, and sustainability is actually the natural outcome of this and not the hard sell. So for instance, instead of saying things like, okay, book this eco lodge because it saves the planet, but instead we're highlighting the incredible cliffside view, the farm to table breakfast, and it just happens to be solar powered and locally owned. Most people don't realize is that travel consciously doesn't really mean sacrificing comfort or pleasure. Instead, it actually adds on to the depth of your experience and your trip. It helps you to have better memories, better connections, and get a real sense of the place. And that is what we are championing here at TRAppe. Like, we believe that sustainability should feel aspirational, and we want to make it like easy, fun, effortless to do good while you're traveling. So that also kind of leads into, what is our first product. So we're actually launching our first destination guide on the 17th of June, which is focused on Bali. And it's actually a beautifully curated guidebook that helps travelers to explore this island more meaningfully with places that actually support the local community, the culture, the environment without compromising on the overall experience. So ultimately, what we're trying to do here at TRAppe is to make conscious travel feel easy, cool, exciting, and not look at it as a sacrifice, but actually an upgrade to your overall travel experience.
So it means that in terms of product, you want to provide a listing or directory
Yes.
of restaurants, hotels, or even these experiences that are in line with
Yes.
sustainability.
Yes, but I would also add in here, okay, like I said, sustainability is a very complex issue, right? So the thing about sustainability is that there's so many different nuances. So what is sustainable in considered in Bali might not be what is sustainable in Singapore. There's just so many different layers to this whole sustainability spin.
Give me an example. I'm curious.
Yes.
I'm curious.
Okay, let me just dive in a little bit more into this, right? So I think sustainability isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of situation. What is the best practice in Europe may not be aligned with what is the best practice here in Southeast Asia. So, what is working in a country like Iceland wouldn't necessarily work in Bali, and what is sustainable in a small village in Vietnam might look very different from Tokyo or Singapore. One of the things is that context really, really matters. So for instance, if you were to building with bamboo is considered sustainable in Bali. But maybe in another country, in order to build this bamboo, you have to import bamboo. You have to import the bamboo. So actually then that's not considered sustainable in a country like Singapore, right? And also what's sustainable by Western standard can be very extractive elsewhere. You've heard about all these global certifications and labels, but they don't always account for the local context and the local culture and the economic realities of a different destinations. This is something that I think people don't really understand. Every different country has a different nuance to it, and different country has a different focus to it. Some countries, you might have to focus a little bit more on the environmental side. Some countries you might have to focus a lot more on the economic side, and some countries you have to focus a lot more on the local community. So there really is a lot of nuance to this whole sustainability umbrella that most people actually don't really know. It's also about trade-offs and not perfection. A local homestay might use a plastic water bottle, but the money that you are spending is actually supporting the local and the local family. Whereas you could be booking a plastic-free villa, or it might actually be foreign-owned. So actually, you're not really helping the local community. Instead of asking, is this 100% sustainable? I think a better question to really ask yourself is, what's the most thoughtful choice that I can make for this destination? And I think that is where our TRAppe comes in, because the way we present destination, we really take into consideration the nuance of the destination, what is really needed for the destination, and we're not just slapping a label and just be like, okay, this is sustainable by global standard. Because that really does not work across the map.
There's so many things to think about now. Far from just, is this place using plastic, or are they using glass, or are they serving food on a plastic plate or a paper plate, right?
Yes.
So interestingly, you talked about your first product coming out in June. What is the business model for TRAppe, if you could briefly explain?
Yeah, for sure. So for right now, because we are in our first year of operations, and like I explained, there's a huge say-do get right now between people who say they want to travel more sustainably and people actually taking action. So this year, we're actually going to focus on e-guides. So all of this e-guides is actually to gather more data about the market and to also try to find product market fit within this market. So right now, our business model is to sell e-guides. So we are doing Bali, and we actually have Singapore coming up, which I'm really, really excited about, because I've not lived in Singapore for the last 17 years. So doing an e-guide for Singapore is kind of for me to rediscover my home country again. So I'm actually very, very excited about this. And we also have 2 more destinations coming out, which I have not really nailed down as to which destinations I would like to do. So in this first year, we'll be selling this e-guide. So it's a very straightforward business model. And if let's say everything goes well this year, what we're going to do is take all of this information from this e-guide and transfer it onto the online platform that we've always envisioned TRAppe to be. We don't want to operate like a OTA. We don't want to take any commission. So it's going to be sort of a membership base, and whereby the businesses will pay a membership subscription, and your membership subscription depends on the size of your business, as well as the revenue of your business. So if let's say you are a local business, then obviously you're not going to pay the same price as somebody who is a much bigger, a much bigger sort of like enterprise.
Or like a chain. Do you
Yes.
chains?
I mean, I will be very honest with you that, obviously international hotel chains is part of the problem when it comes to sustainable travel, but there are really a lot of hotel chains that are doing a lot of good work within sustainability as well. So I'm not going to say that I'm not going to take them. I feel like it's too early to say as well. But yeah, for me, like I said, different country needs different things, and sustainability means different things to different countries. So it's not fair for me to sit here and be like, no, I'm never going to take a chain because, they are the problem with sustainable travel. They could be really doing a lot of good work for the local destinations. And if they really are, then we would absolutely take them on as well.
Do you have any criteria for people to be members of your community or businesses?
Yes, the most important thing is the local community piece and the economy piece. So these are something that I hold very dear to my heart, and something that we really, really look into. So one thing that we can promise in terms of curating all of these businesses is that we make sure that the money does stay within the local community. And that is the number one criteria for us, to make sure however you're operating your business, you are giving back to the local community. And that could be through hiring locally and making sure it's a fair local wage, or it could be through programs that you are doing for the local community, or actually if you are building accommodation in this local community, you're actually regenerating for this community rather than extracting from this community. So I would say that is probably one of the biggest criteria for us.
And those are a lot of things happening. I'm just getting dizzy just thinking about when you're talking. But because there's so many. For instance, even on the island of Bali, you would have to. Well, we call it vetting, but you have to go through many businesses. You have to talk to them and figure out what they're trying to do or how they're doing it. So how do you do it?
So I've been very lucky because I've lived here for 5 years. So I actually know a lot of these businesses. I've actually been to a lot of these businesses myself. So that is something that, I am very confident with in terms of this Bali book. But of course, we do face the problem of how do we really replicate this in every destination that we're going to be at. So one of the ways that we're doing it is to be partnering with a local expert, a local person who is sort of in this cross-section of sustainability and travel, because they definitely know their market a lot better than we will ever know their market. And on top of that, they are usually local. They really care about the local community. They are part of the local community. We want the local community to have more of a voice in how tourism is shaped in their destination. So I would say I'm very lucky that I've lived here for 5 years. So I do know the businesses here very, very well. And I mean, Singapore as well. I know it briefly, but we do have partners in Singapore that we're starting to work with, and they know the Singapore local community very, very well within the sustainable space. And then the next destination we're going to partner with somebody else from that destination as well. So that is the way we are going. But, just like every single startup in the world, we might pivot somewhere along the way. Just because we are like this now does not mean that we're going to be like this in the future in terms of product. But I would say our North Star will always be the same, which is to help and better the local community. That will always be our North Star. How we get there is not as important as us actually getting there and really making an impact.
That's very interesting that you're working with local experts, which I think is also a way of walking your talk, right? I mean, you can't be expecting to fly a bunch of your people into that place and then you're doing the recce and figuring out everything on your own. That wouldn't be very smart.
Yeah, and also I would say, what we do here at TRAppe is also very community-centric and very community-driven. I feel like when you feel like you're part of the community, it pushes you to take more action, right? It's like if I'm just selling you an ebook and telling you this is great, and you're like, oh, okay, but you don't feel a sense of belonging. So what we're really trying to build here is a community of people who really, really cares and who really wants to do good and really want to see change within this tourism industry.
You remind me of Lonely Planet guidebooks.
I know, somebody actually said that.
I was thinking, this is the millennial Gen Z version, right? This is like really for the planet, of course. I mean, for the planet, for the people, right? For responsible travel and tourism. But yeah, I just thought of that when you're talking, saying, this is very interesting, very reminiscent.
Yes, it's so funny because when I first came out with this idea of wanting to use this whole e-guidebook to test traction, one of my friends was like, yeah, so you're basically Lonely Planet, but like the new generation of Lonely Planet. And my friend actually said, like, that's actually not a bad idea because Lonely Planet has been around for a really long time. So for sure, the demand is there. People are still buying Lonely Planet in this day and age. But it's obviously the new generation probably are not into Lonely Planet as much. So this could be a really interesting spin to the whole entire Lonely Planet brand. But I'm not saying I'm going after Lonely Planet. But yeah, that could be an idea that could come out of this whole entire year of trying to find product market fit and trying to gain traction within the market.
Yeah. But if you said that to your investors, immediately they will get it.
Yes.
Because I think that is like this is like the 5-second thing that they can just get into your brain, like, oh, but this is what it's all about. Of course, later you can go into your specifics and your details about what it is, how it benefits the community. But I think, yeah, that could immediately catch on with a lot of your investors and people who want to come and support you. So if the person is a local expert, a local guide, and the person possibly could be listening to this podcast, who knows, right? Could they reach out to you? Could if they knew someone who is a local guide, could they reach out to you and get introduced to you?
Yes, absolutely. Just anybody who's listening to this podcast, if you're just even slightly interested to learn more about sustainable travel, I would love to connect with you. I'm just very passionate about this topic. So, even if it's not like a business exchange or anything like that, if you're just interested and you want to hear more about sustainable travel, like, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to talk your ear off about this topic.
So in the work that we've been doing for the last, I could say probably 2 years, right? 2 years from the minute you had the idea to fundraising and all that. What are some of the more interesting people or businesses you ever come across that probably you feel nobody knows about this, but they should?
Yes. Okay. Like in Bali, oh my goodness, the amount of hidden gems that people don't know about is insane. So I think, and because I think, if I'm being super honest about Bali, right? I think Bali is built by foreigners for foreigners. So a lot of the experience that you see in Bali is for foreigners. So the local people didn't really have a say from the very beginning as to how tourism is really shaped on this island, right? And then nowadays, when you look at Bali, it's all Bali swing and like beautiful beaches and, people surfing. And, there is so much more about Bali that people don't know about. So actually 2 months ago, I went on this trekking tour, and it's actually by a social enterprise and has a very, very interesting story. This trekking tour that's actually led by women from one of the most remote villages in Bali. They used to have to trek 10 hours a day to go get fresh water. And they are usually also the ones that you see begging for money at the tourist hotspots. So this enterprise basically came in and try to empower this community, whereby they built like water tanks to collect rainwater so the women don't have to trek 10 hours a day to get fresh water. And they actually also empower all of these women to become like trekking guides. And because this is such a remote village and this is such a remote location, not many people actually know about this trekking. I went with a friend. It was just the two of us. And if you have been to Bali, you know how rare it is to be on a trek with nobody but just the two of you. So I think that is a whole gem in itself. And I would also say that I've got a really good friend here. He's Balinese, and he's one of those people that really saw a lot of problems with the way tourism was shaped in Bali. He was very sick and tired of tourists just coming here and living their Instagram dream without really knowing Bali. So he's actually one of the first people on the island that have decided to open up his village to tourists. So what he does is actually this 2-day tour whereby you're actually invited to his actual village, quite a remote location. Yeah, you can't even use your phone while you're there, which I honestly loved. I'm like, this is great. I am like off the grid for 2 days. This is paradise. So then you go to his village and he shows you around and you actually experience the everyday village life with him. And that really helps you to understand the Balinese culture a lot more. And Bali has such an amazing heritage and an amazing culture that most people don't even come close to even understanding at all while they're here on a 2 weeks holiday. And I think that is such a pity, because I would say it's really the people and the culture on this island that has kept me here for the last 5 years. There's so many ceremonies, there's so many traditions, and year after year I'm like, I'm going to stay here one more year because I want to experience Nipi. I want to stay here one more year because I want to experience Galungan. There's just so many wonderful things about this island that just people don't even scratch the surface of it when they come here. That's one of the reasons why I really want to push this agenda forward, because I want these people to have a voice, because I believe it is these people that actually makes every destination very, very special.
I'm sure you would have unearthed some gems in Singapore, the non-touristy path, right?
Yes. I actually just discovered this new restaurant in Singapore as well, that they are actually by one of the last fish farms in Singapore. You know what Singapore's like, that we have no farms. There is nothing whatsoever. So I actually just discovered very recently that there's fish farm, that one of the last fish farms in Singapore, they actually opened up a restaurant. So it's very, very fresh, like farm to table, which is something you really don't get in Singapore because we don't have any fresh produce. So definitely, no matter where you go, if you're willing to dig deep enough, you are definitely able to discover local hidden gems. But I do think, as a tourist, it's a bit of a curve for you to discover all of these hidden gems. And I think this is one of the things that we want to do as well. We want to make it easy for you to have really authentic experiences, and not just like the top 5 restaurants to visit or the top 5 destination of a place. Because I think that has been way oversaturated at this point because of social media as well.
In terms of your business, who are you looking for? Or what kinds of people, besides of course the people who will be, becoming members later on, what are the kinds of people or partners are you looking for?
Besides like the sustainable businesses as well, we are also looking for even businesses who, let's say, are interested in how they could do better in terms of their operation. If you were to listen to this and it really struck you and you're like, okay, now I'm conscious and I want to do something about it, like I would love to be in touch with these people as well, because it's so important to have this conversation. And obviously change comes about two-sided, right? It's the consumers who are demanding this change, and also the companies who are also sort of like spearheading this agenda as well. So if let's say, you are a business and you operate whether a restaurant, a hotel, or a tour, and after listening to this podcast, you're suddenly like, oh, okay, maybe there's a better way to do things. Please get in touch with us as well. We could link you up with people who specialize in maybe your area, whether that's hotels, whether that's restaurants, whether that's tours, trying to help you to come in and try to advise and give you advice as to how you could operate in a more sustainable way that actually does good for the community.
Great. And I think that probably is even open to other people who are not in the restaurant or tourism business, right? Because there could be other businesses out there supplying to these businesses.
Yes, supply chain is a big one when it comes to tourism as well, and economic leakage. And I actually just discovered 2 days ago that there is a huge link between palm oil and tourism. And that is something that I never really thought about. Essentially, the culinary and hospitality industry actually heavily relies on palm oil here in Indonesia, and that is a very new discovery for me. So just like everybody else, I am still learning every single day. Traveling better isn't about all or nothing. It's really about making a difference, one small and thoughtful travel decision at a time.
Yeah, well said, because we all be feeling terrible about our carbon footprint, right? Otherwise we wouldn't go anywhere. So we try to minimize. I guess the keyword here is try to live in a way that doesn't destroy the planet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you are going on holiday, ask yourself every time you're going to spend money, ask yourself, who's really benefiting from my spending? And if you were to dig a little bit deeper and you realize it's not the local people, then I strongly urge you to look for another option.
If I wanted to see whether this business was really benefiting the local people, how could I find the information? Of course, I guess one of the big, check out TRAPPE's e-guide, right?
Exactly.
Besides checking out TRAPPE's e-guides, what can they do?
To be very honest, it's not easy to find. Obviously there's this whole sustainability badge and certification. But I can tell you it is not easy information to find. But there are some really quick steps that you can take in order to, travel more sustainably. I mean, number one will be to stay local. Try to look for locally owned guest house or accommodation. Second will be to eat local. Try to eat at local restaurants, or even if you are eating at restaurants, look for farm to table options, because farm to table options usually mean that it comes from the farm nearby that sources local ingredients. Try to buy local. Don't buy mass produced souvenirs. Try to look for artisan souvenirs, because that also actually helps to preserve the culture and the craftsmanship of the destination. Book direct. That's a very, very big one. That's a very quick and simple step that everybody can take. So instead of booking on OTAs, book directly on the website of any of the businesses. And I will give everybody a travel tip here, okay? So this is my little secret. I know everybody is price sensitive, and there's nothing wrong with being price sensitive. So what I usually do is that I will use an OTA to source out all of the options there are. And then once I found something I like, personally, I will go dig deeper to make sure that, this is locally owned and, this is really doing good for the community and the planet. And then I will go onto the website and book it directly.
Okay. So you're doing the general search first,
yes,
on the OTA. And then when you nail down that particular accommodation, you Google for that direct website of that accommodation.
Exactly. And then I will always book directly. That for me, now I've made it a criteria that I only book direct. I would never book it through OTA. I also will urge everybody to learn a little bit about the cultural norms, the environmental issues, and the community needs of the destination you're visiting. I mean, it's so easy nowadays. We have all of the tools. You don't even need to Google. Just ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT will tell you.
That's true. We have no excuse to be lazy anymore and not do our research.
Exactly. Yeah, and of course, slow down in your travel. Travel slower, spend more time in fewer places, really get to know a place, and really try to go as deep as you can rather than to be on the surface level. Because when you start digging deeper and when you start experiencing deeper, like I said, it actually enhances your overall travel experience and is actually an extra add-on for you rather than seeing it as a sacrifice.
Speaking of travel, I remember when I was in Bali many years ago, I ate at a local roadside stall.
Yeah.
They were serving soto ayam, where all the locals were eating. So if the locals are eating it, it must be good, right? It must be something that is worth eating. So we did that.
And, I will give everybody else a tip. When you meet a local person, always ask them, where's your favorite place to eat? Where is your favorite place to go? What is a place that only you know and nobody else know? And that is usually how you discover hidden gems. And also ensuring that you support the locals. And trust me, if you're willing to just ask this question, it's going to open up an entire new world for you anywhere in the world.
How is it like for you now that you've been a founder of your own business? How has the journey been for you?
It has, to be very honest, I feel very, very lucky and very, very fortunate to have this opportunity to work on something that is very, very close to my heart, and also can bring about real impact. But I would say it is a very tough uphill battle. There's a lot of things stacked against me. The fact that I am a female, I think that is a huge thing in the business world, no matter which industry you're in. So it has been a bit of an uphill battle. I think for the longest time, travel in Asia has been shaped by Western perspective. It's always the West selling Asia. There really isn't much narrative coming from the Asian perspective. So it has been very, very challenging trying to change this perspective of instead of the West detecting how Asia is sold, having somebody from this region to voice out hey, we want you to come here and experience Asia, but we don't want you to just come and experience Asia the Western way. We want you to come here and experience Asia for what it is. And I think that's a very hard narrative to challenge. And I also think I added an extra layer of complexity to it because it is in sustainability, and sustainability is just very complex as it is. But yeah, like I would not give up, and I would try my absolute best to really challenge the norm, because I really do believe that we can travel in a better way that can really give back to the local community.
Well said. Because that's the whole reason why I have my podcast too, because a lot of people will approach me and they just want to get on the podcast, no matter what podcast, but they didn't read my tagline. My tagline is, it's featuring Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia. I don't know how many people miss that. I have men from I do not know where emailing me, and I just had one come in today saying that I'm a founder of this business, I can talk about this. I was thinking, like, did you not read the fine print? did you not read my tagline? I mean, it's right there on my website, and I say, this is what I do. It's all women in Asia, Asian women in Asia, very, very niche, very specific. But yeah, people will still do crazy things. So sometimes it just baffles me. But that's what I do, because I think in Asia, we need to have more Asian voices. We need to have more Asians speaking up, Asians telling their own stories.
Exactly.
From the Asian perspective. Yeah. And not someone telling us what to say. We're saying what we want to say.
Exactly. And you know, I would be very realistic about the fact that, of course, I'm not Indonesian, or I'm not Thai, or I'm not Vietnamese, but I do believe, like, coming from this region, I understand the nuance a lot better than somebody who's trying to sell Asia from the Western countries. That puts me in a very special position. And I've worked in this industry, and I understand what really happens in this industry. I really want to champion this, and I really want to come out and tell the Asian story and let the rest of the world really see Asia very differently from what they're seeing right now. That is the common narrative. And to really come Asia and really, really experience Asia, and not experience what you see on social media.
Not experience the Instagram version of Asia, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so final question. Yeah.
Yes, please. I just wanted to say, you know, I am very proud to be Asian, extremely proud to be Southeast Asian. Just like you know, I want to push the agenda, and I want to represent this part of the world.
Yes. Or more power to us, right?
Yes, more power to us.
So, Gabby, where can people find you online?
Please find us on our website, which is TRAppe Travel, www.trappetravel.com, TRAppe as in TRAPPE, travel TRAVEL.com. And we are launching our guide on the 17th of June. So if you are traveling to Bali, please purchase this guide. I can assure you that there's a lot of hidden gems on it that you would not be able to find anywhere. And also knowing that, you know, any of these options that you choose, you can be rest assured that it's doing good for the local community or the planet or the local economy. And that I can absolutely promise you.
Okay, thank you so much, Gabby. And before we leave, before we end this fantastic episode, I just wanted to give a shout out to the person who connected us, Michelle.
Yes, my dear friend Michelle. Thank you, Michelle.
Would you like to explain a little bit about what Michelle does?
Yes, so Michelle is a very dear friend of mine. So I was actually working together with her for the last 1 year. I was actually freelancing while building TRAppe. A lot of founders, they do this now. You know, in order to build your dream business, you know, you also have to live. And I think, you know, building your dream business the first few years doesn't really give you any income. So I sort of had to freelance to supplement my income. And, you know, she has been somebody who has given me a lot of freedom in terms of being able to make an income with her, and she still allowed me to build and work on my business. But she has become a very, very dear friend of mine throughout the last 1.5 years that we've been working together, and she's extremely supportive in everything I do. She's also a solo female entrepreneur and somebody that I really, really look up to. And I would absolutely say that, you know, a lot of how I am operating TRAppe, or how I want to operate TRAppe, is all of the lessons that I've learned from her. So thank you, Michelle. I'm very, very grateful that I've met you. And like I said, I am somebody who believes everything is meant to be. So I believe that we were always meant to meet.
The little quick backstory is that Michelle messaged me on LinkedIn, and funnily, she told me, I'm not the right demographic for you, but here's this person who could be a great fit for your podcast. So I say, great, I'm open to having conversations. we recommended people, and if they become recommended, all the better, right? Because it's a really warmer approach, and we know in a way we kind of trust each other at the first meeting. And so here we are recording this podcast. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you, Gabby. And I really hope to see good things and big things happen for you in TRAppe Travel.
Me too. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. And like I said, anybody who is interested in anything sustainable travel, please contact me. I'll be more than happy to have a conversation with you.
What powerful insights did you gain from Gabby's journey today? Gabby's part as an insider in luxury hospitality marketing across Singapore, Australia, China, Vietnam, and Indonesia to founding TRAppe shows us that meaningful change often begins with a single question and the courage to act on it. Her story reminds us that travel can be more than just a personal escape. It can be a force for good that uplifts local communities. Through TRAppe, Gabby is reimagining tourism by curating experiences that are thoughtful, local, and rooted in compassion, the very values she learned from her grandmother. I like how Gabby is building a business that reflects who she is at her core. Curious, intentional, pragmatic, yet deeply committed to people first and foremost. She's quite clear that it is an uphill struggle to change narratives and fight what some might consider a futile fight. Now, here's a question for you. How might your own values and life experiences shape the way you create impact in your work and community? If you're new to Womenpreneur Asia, be sure to subscribe so you won't miss more inspiring stories like Gabby's. And for our loyal listeners, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast on your preferred podcast app. Your support helps us reach more women entrepreneurs across Asia and beyond. This is Krista Gun signing off, and I will see you next Friday for another brand new episode of Womenpreneur Asia.